Go. Maseches Bava Kama. Maseches Bava Kama. Daf Tzadi Aleph Amud Aleph. Maseches Bava Kama. We are excited. It's Erev Purim, and we're learning about punching your friend and the consequences. So, if you punch your friend in Purim, it's a different halacha. There's a question about it, but still don't try it at home. Let's go now. And this year's Leilu Nishmas of Imoyre Menachem Ben Akiva. Leilu Nishmas Sorobas Moshe Lofuas Rach Hanoilot Ben Tomer. That's my grandson. Ve'la Lofuas Noach Leonel Ben Yulia Oriya and Nina Chai Bas Ochel Yehudis Bas Rivka Besoch Shachol Yisrael. Toshma Chamisha Dvorim. What are we talking about? We're very much in the middle of the sugya that discusses a very simple question. The question is as follows. There are two psukim in the Torah that describe to you a stone that was used in order to either kill someone. That's in one part of the Torah, in Dvorim. And we have in Pashas Mishpatim, in Shmois, Even or Egroif, also a stone that harmed someone, a stone that injured someone, but it was not did not take a deathly toll. Yep. So now the question is as follows. We have a Yesoid. We saw that if we talk about death, we say the Beis Din have to actually have the stone in front of them in order to decide, gauge, and assess and know whether this stone is really a killer stone. Would a human being really die by being hit by that stone? Yes or no? Like a very small pebble, unless it's David and Goliath. Very interesting you brought this into the discussion, but regular people are not David and Goliath. They are whatever, Reuven and Shloimele. So then we're not talking here about any supernatural thing. Not every stone can kill every person. Yeah, we know that the person killed the victim. Good morning, Svi. The victim was a husky, I don't know, 2 meters guy. Don't tell me that tiny stone killed him. No. Okay, so that we know we have to assess. However, when we talk about Nezikin, here's a question. What's a question? Do we say that by Nezikin also a person claims so-and-so, look at Reuven, that violent guy, Reuven, you know what he did? He threw a stone at me, he threw a pebble at me, and that's why I lost my finger. Okay, now he has to pay me. I'm a pianist. Ooh, that's a lot of money. I'm a violinist. I play with the Philharmonic Orchestra. So now you should pay me. The question is, do we say, or do we stop and think, wait, we don't know if such a stone can actually really cut off a person's hand? Yes or no? I don't know. We have to assess. Just like we say by Misa, by death, so too we say by injury, or maybe no. The Chiddush is we're suggesting, we don't yet know, we're suggesting maybe when it comes to injury, says Rashi, I'm quoting Rashi from before, Rashi says, the zimnin the itzdak b'chol dehu. Sometimes when it comes to nezikin, a nezek, damage, injury can happen by anything. Death doesn't happen by anything. Injury maybe. We had a tzad yesterday that even a 1 tefach bor, which is even less than 3 tefachim, maybe that can cause injury. It's only a step. Only a step. You're surprised. Sometimes you can go to emergency room and you hear the most, out of the way story, out of line stories. A person tripped over a small thread, a small step, and somehow, boom, you lost the balance, and there was big injury. So maybe when it comes to injury, we do not assess the size of the stone, but we say we don't care about the size of the stone as long as we know that there was injury. So we say that's it. You have to pay for the injury. That's a question. We did not yet arrive at any conclusion. We're asking a question, and we posed different stodim, different sides. Toshma. The line starts with the word potu, and it's more or less in the middle of the wide lines of the state of Tzadik Aleph Amud Aleph. Potu. Toshma. Chamisha dvorim oimdin oisoi v'noisnin loi miad. The five payments of damage, which I'm sure you all know by heart, obviously. The 5 things that each aggressor has to pay the victim, you assess, and noisnin loi miad, and you give it to him right away, which means nezek. Once I know how much is the nezek, that pianist lost his finger. Ooh, that's a lot of money. Now he cannot play the piano for the biggest orchestra for a living. And what? Nezek, tsar, the pain you have to assess. The shame, how much shame he, is worth, how much shame his status, his social status, and what about the other 2 things? Also, ripui and sheves. What's ripui? The medical expenses you also give him right away. And also the sheves, the amount of time he lost, he will have to lose at work, you also give him right away. Let me ask you a question. How can you give it to him right away? Do you know how much are his medical expenses are? Let's say the injury was today. The basin works very quickly. How do you know how much medical expenses he's going to have? How do you know how many days he's going to lose at work? You're based in, but are you a prophet? Are you Ruach HaKodesh? Says the Brisa, Ripui v'sheves ad sheisrape. Ripui v'sheves, you give him until he gets better. He gets the medical expenses, every day in hospital. It's a private hospital. And what? And also sheves, the amount of time he lost at work. It's his new job. Ad sheisrape. We have to skip a line now, according to the Bach. You skip into exactly one line below, in the middle of the line, amduhu. Amduhu ve'hivri. How do you give it to him right away? You assess him in advance, which means based in either themselves or maybe they call it a doctor, based in omed, based in decides and assesses if this guy has a broken finger, how long it's going to take him to spend in hospital, how many days or weeks will they have to spend in hospital. There is a medical assessment. I would call a doctor if I was a Dayan. And also how many days he's going to lose at work, how many days he's going to miss work. So that you have to pre-assume before the hospitalization and before the medical story. That you have to assess before. And you assess and you give him however much you think will be his future in the next few weeks or months in hospital and outside work. There's two payments, how much you'll have to pay the doctors and how many days he's going to miss at work. Okay, so you prepaid, it's a prepaid thing, but what do you assume? I don't know, it works in other countries. In this country, they assume the amount of money you're going to make in the beginning of the year, and that's how they tax you. You made less, so next year they'll give it back to you, hopefully. So you pre-assume. Amdu vehivri. Yeah, we skipped in with the next line. Let's say they assessed him, and Baruch Hashem, Ivri, he got better earlier than expected. We gave him money at Rosh Chodesh, on Rosh Chodesh Adar Aleph, gave him money for 2 months. Instead of the 2 expected months that he was expected to be in hospital and away from work, he got better earlier. So nice. Will he have to give the money back? Does he have to return the money? Right, Rab Simkin is back. The return of the rabbi. You still give him everything that you assessed him. Why? Correct, everybody. Says Rashi, Mishamayim Richmu. As the Gemara will say later, Mishamayim De'ez Rachmanus Atim. Which means, let me say it to you in the more lomdish way. When the person, listen to the more yeshivish way of defining it. When the person, look at me, when the person, I never do that, don't worry, it's only in a demo, when a person actually goes and punches his friend in the nose or in the finger or whatever, in that punch, in that fist itself, in that kind of makkah, that kind of hit, includes in it 2 months in hospital. In other words, the type of makkah you gave him, includes in it 2 months hospitalization. Okay. Once my daughter Baruch Hashem, very good from girls, she was once in archaeological site. She was digging. She asked, they found something, so she asked the main archaeologist, "Oh, how much is that?" So he told her, smiled, and said, "That's 5 years in jail." Why? Because if you take it in Israel, the very machmir, if you take, not that she was going to take it home, if you take, this is 5 years in jail. If you take it home, you don't report in it. In other words, this fist includes in it 2 months in hospital. That's it. Finished. He got better earlier. He got better earlier. Oh, he got better earlier. That's his luck. That's his luck. That's his mazel. Mishamayim. Hashem loves him. Like the song, Hashem loves you. Very nice. But the etzim, you owe him this amount of money. That's it. And that doesn't change. That doesn't change. Like sometimes I know your boss would give you money for transportation in Israel. You didn't use it for transportation because your friend gave you a ride. He still gives you money for transportation. You didn't use it, that's a different story. Shmamino, but what do we care about it? Shmamino, we're trying to derive from here. The line starts with the word shin mem, Yosef. Shin mem shmamino. Shmamino yesh oimed lenezikin. We see that we do assess nezikin. We do gauge and see, even in nezikin, not only a death, lemeimad, and we omed, by the way, omed is with aleph, not with an ayin. Yeah, you know that. Omed means to stand, but omed with an aleph means to assess, to evaluate. Yeah, like umdana. Lemeimad Bava Kama liktsar. Liktsar means to be sick, meaning we see here that the concept of assessing and evaluating, even when it kama liktsar, how far, how much, how long will be liktsar means to be sick. How long will it be sick? Miha maka, from that wound. So we see you're asking me whether when it comes to nezikin, do we gauge, do we assess, or don't we assess? Here, look, there is an assessment. We only go by assessment. We do not wait until it finishes hospital, like the insurances do in Chutz La'aretz. They wait until you pay the money and then give it back to you, hopefully. No, you prepay it in advance. How can you prepay in advance? Only by your assessment. So you see that we do assess things and we do evaluate the makkah when it comes to injury, even though it's not death. Voila, here's your answer. Answers the Gemara, no. You're completely mixing two different things, says the Gemara. Excuse me, no. How much will he be or won't be sick? Mikza is not a question. We never asked. Of course, I'm dinan. Of course, we have to assess that. Obviously, you always assess how long it's going to happen, how long it's going to be, because that's how you pay the shevis. How much? How many days in hospital is that boom? Is it 1 week or is it 2 months? Of course, you have to assess that. Hikami bailan. Our question was not that. It was regarding a different kind of assessment. Lemeimad chefza iovid hainizka oiloi. The question was about the chefza. What's a chefza in English? Object. The question was about the object. Is this object ovid nizka? Is this object something that can really cause damage or not? Is that pebble, which is not tiny but not a huge rock, can it or cannot? Can it not do nezek? Do we assess that, or maybe we do not assess it? And you always assume the worst, because nezek can always happen for anything, from anything. And that's a question. Here comes the answer. And funnily enough, we're going to close the circle now, close the circuit, because what we said at the very, very beginning of the sugya is going to be the answer. Toshma, this is the answer which we've seen at the beginning already 2 days ago. Shimon Taimani Omer, Shimon Taimani says, Ma eguf miyuchad shemosu le'eda v'le'edim. Why did the Torah compare the fist to the stone? Why? Just like the egroif, what's egroif? The fist is masur, is given and can be seen and evaluated by the Eda and Edim. What's Eda? That's the Beis Din. When the Beis Din stands, the Beis Din sits and the person stands in front of them, the accused, they can see the size of his fist, and if he's a bodybuilder or a miskain, just like that, so too, the stone or the knife or the whatever, or the plastic piece, whatever that is also mosul, should be assessed and evaluated by the Eda and the Edim. It should be taken to Beis Din. What did Shimon Timoni said? Do you remember? Do you have to bring the evidence to Beis Din? Yes, very good, Yosef, very good. Should be good. You're close to me. We're good together. Yeah, of course. Le'eda ve'edim. So then, says Shimon Timoni, why do you bring that stone to Beis Din? Because it's an interesting archaeological finding? No, you want to assess if that caused harm or not. Shmami no, from here we derive, yesh oimid l'nizikin shmami no, mazel tov. Now the chiddush is, this pasuk spoke not about death, that pasuk spoke about nizikin. That pasuk spoke about nizikin. That was my mistake when I first introduced you to the pasuk. It was a mistake which I apologized for yesterday. The pasuk talks about nofal mishkav and he did not die. If somebody hits his friend with the egrof or with a stone and he did not die, then you have the 5 payments. According to Shimon Temoni, the pasuk begins with describing a situation in which Beis Din has to look at the stone, actually, at the physical stone, and guess and guesstimate how much exactly, or can it cause a nezek or not, right? That's a question. So Shmami no, even when it comes to nezikin, we are not machmir, and we don't just say, it can always happen. No, even when nezikin, you have to, we say in Hebrew, kol mikra legufoi. You judge each case, separately by its nature. And that's a story by nezikin. By the way, big surprise, and that's an answer for Baruch. Baruch asked, who is halacha like? And I saw the Shulchan Aruch and I was very surprised. Halacha is like Shimon Timoni, meaning that Shimon Timoni said it's not enough that the Eidim actually tell Beis Din about the size of the stone. They can say everything else. But the size of the object of the evidence, the evidence, every court case has an evidence. Says money, yes, you have to have the evidence. And if you don't have the evidence, then you don't have a court case. But if you don't have the evidence, but the Eidim are saying that it happened, we tend to believe the Eidim, so we don't do anything. But if the Nizak took the law into his hand, the one damaged, the one with a broken toe or with a bruised eye, if he took money from the Mazik, we don't take it away from him. We leave things as they are. Get it? In other words, we won't say because it is very likely that the Mazik who threw a stone and so has the damaged eye. We don't have the what? We don't have the stone in front of us. So we can't do full din, we're like staying passive, we're staying passive. But Shulchan Aruch says that because it's very likely that it was the Mazik's fault, as the Eidim are generally saying, except that we don't have the actual stone, but everything else we have. So if the Nizak took the law into his hand and he took the money from the Mazik, we leave the money by him, as is the power of situation, many cases in Ezekiel in our Masechta. Okay, so that's the halacha. Hopefully not the mice. So even by Nizikin, we have to assess and guess. Omar, 2 dots. Omar, Amdu vehivri. Let's say we are now repeating, reviewing, revising, rereading what we saw before. Amdu vehivri. They assessed the person. Oy, vay, voy, vay, voy. They brought the top doctor, professor, not the doctor, professor in Hadassah, and he said that kind of injury, my professional opinion is that for sure requires 3 months in hospital. Beivri, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows better than the doctors. Excuse the kfira. Yeah, Hashem knows better, and Hashem decided instead of 3 months, the guy was out of Hadassah after 1 month. So, noitzin lo kol ma shamdu. Lucky man, you still give him the entire sum that was assessed for, as we explained before, and now the Gemara will explain why. Which I already told you before. This brisa supports Rava. This brisa endorses Rava. Doma Rava, it says Rava. Hi man damdu lekula yoima. Let's not talk about months, let's talk about whole day. Let's say that person came to Beis Din. Beis Din said, it looks like he has to actually be out of work for an entire day. From dawn to dusk, he'll have to be in hospital or home, recuperating. He's going to miss an entire day's work. The itpach lepalga de yoima. Itpach means he got better. He healed. Otz palga de yoima. Half day came noontime. The guy, got a good massage, good therapy, good creams, whatever he got. Whoa, half a day, and he's back to work. He ran back to work. Yeah, instead of missing an entire day, he only missed half a day. And he went back to work and he made money. He works by the hour, American hours. Every hour he makes, so and so amount of dollars. Half a day was off. The afternoon he was working by the computer, by the phone, raking in the money, and he worked. You still give him the kuli yoima. We still give him the compensation that we originally anticipated of an entire day. Why is that? Maybe the Mazik would say, that's not fair. Why not fair? Because Lamaisa, he got better after half a day. Why do I have to give him an entire day? Says the Heilige Gemara, Min Shmayahu derachmi alei. From Shamayim, they had mercy at him. The natural way is that your kind of punching his toe was supposed to be an entire day at home or in hospital. Was an entire day off work, losing a lot of money. That's for sure. He got better earlier. That is to say, use very low language, none of your business. Because why? Hashem et Rachmana Satim. But you heard my Lam Tishak Dara, rabbis. Your fist contained within it an entire day off work. You did cause him a day off work. You have to pay for that. He got better. Shkoyach. Maybe he wins the lottery. Maybe his rich uncle from BH gave you money. BH is Beverly Hills, by the way. Yeah, it's none of your business. Nothing to do with you. And therefore, you have to remain with paying him the entire day's loss of work. Now we're going to listen to you in a second, Ellen. But soon we're going to go back to the Mishnah of Tzadi Amud Beis, the top of the page. Those of you who want, you can sort of like skim over the Mishnah Tzadi Amud Beis. Yes, Ellen, I'm with you. Rokak ve'egia boy haroik. Let's say a person spat at his friend. Yeah, lo aleinu ve'higia bo harok, and the saliva, the spittle actually reached his face or his hand or his stomach or whatever. Vehevir talis v'chule. Now, so let's just quote one thing. If the person spat at his friend, okay, and it hit him, then we say he has to pay him. How much does he have to pay him? The highest one, which we spoke about, it was 400. 400 zuz, that's a lot of money, a lot of cash, and you got to pay him for spitting on his face. Why? That's called what? Voicious. There's no other thing involved. There's no tsar, no ripui, no shevis. You just wipe it in half a second. But the shame is terrible. The shame is considered to be very hard. Okay? So for that, you got to pay. So far, so good. Okay, it's interesting. I hear. I hear. Amal Pope, I hear. Amal Pope. Loi Shonu, says Rav Pope, that is only true Ela boy. You only have to pay him if you hit him and his own body was touched physically by the fich. Aval bebigdoi loi. Let's say somebody spat at your jacket or your shirt, then we say, no, he doesn't have to pay. Everyone's going to ask, why? What do you mean? Yeah. So let me first read the Gemara. That's also shameful. It's not as bad, maybe. I don't think it would be nice if somebody comes to me in the middle of the street and he's not happy with me. He's going to come and spit at my kippah. He doesn't like wear a black kippah. You know, maybe I go in the wrong kind of area. He's going to spit at my kippah. I don't think that's respectful, and I want to take him to Beis Din. Apparently, no. If he touched my beged and not myself, then we say I cannot demand money of boishes. Soon we'll know why. Let me say another line, and then we'll explain from the Rosh. Well, it's not better than, even though it didn't touch his body. So what if it didn't touch the body? What's a body to do with anything? Let's say Bisha B'dvorim. I can tell you very severe things about people with Mivaish B'dvorim. What's B'dvorim? Verbally. Let's say somebody, as we say today, verbally abused someone in public. In the middle of the street, they called him Mamzer, Shakran, Roshe, all kinds of examples. What? The Knesset, or he called him Chaver Knesset. Yeah, the Ketzer. You know, Yaakov said, I do know that when a politician lies, if his lips are moving. So then, let's say you call your friends' names in the middle of the street. So then, that is also bad. Malbin pnei chaver barabim, what? Says in Shulchan Aruch, it's called Rosha Shoite v'gasluach. He's wicked, foolish, and arrogant, terrible person who puts his friend in shame. Of course, he needs to pay him if he shamed him in public verbally. Says the Gemara, Amri b'ma'arov v'mishmed Rabbi barabin. In Eretz Yisrael, the quote of Rabbi barabin, Zois Omeres. From here, Gufe can derive. Wrong. Even though Levash B'dvorim and to insult somebody in public is terrible, and it says in Halacha it's a very, very bad thing to do. Not only very bad. What did our Ganenet teach us already when I was 4, I think? I didn't know what Olamaba means, but I knew it's something very bad, not Velamaba, whatever that meant. Yeah. So if you insult your friend in public, you don't have Chelik Olamaba, but you don't have to pay. Payment reason. That's Cheshbonos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not in love with you if you insult your friend in public, and we'll see other punishments. But paying boishes, you don't have to pay. Everyone can ask together, W-H, why? Why don't you pay the guy that you insulted in public? The answer is, says the Rosh, the Heilige Poisek Rosh, Rabbeinu Osher, the Rishon, answers very simply. Where does the Torah tell us, what is the description of the Torah? What kind of scenario does the Torah describe when it talks about boishes? It talks about two men that have a fist fight in the middle of the street or the middle of the bar, and what one of them has a very good wife, loyal wife, and she has, guts, and she takes one of the people who's attacking her husband, and she holds him in a certain place where there's a mitzvah. She holds him b'mevushav, and that's a big shame for him that a woman held him in some whatever. So then, you see that the Torah describes boishes as something to do with touching the body, touching the physical part. That's the idea. But she'enken, if boishes is non-physical, or not even touching the body, touching the suit, the jacket, the kippah, that you don't have to pay for. It's terrible, but it's not nezik guf, nezik of the body, which makes a lot of sense, because really all these 5 things that are physical. Physical injury, that involves this and that. It's true that to spit in the face is not physical injury. If the guy does not have corona or AIDS or whatever, then nothing's going to happen. True. But lemaisa, it's a physical thing. It has to be at least as physical as spitting on the face to consider it like a physical injury damage. But something which is completely psychological. If I go and chas v'sholem chalila, get up and call somebody you pig, you Rasha, it's terrible, but it's not physical. It's all words, which is terrible, but it's not involved payment of money. Having said that, before I ask your questions, says the Shulchan Aruch, based in many times, as I told you about many times, based in throughout the generations have the right from Sanhedrin to be very dynamic when it comes to these things. And therefore, if Beis Din decides that this is too much, the guy called his friend the Chazir, Russia, whatever he called him, yeah, let's say the Russian guy and he calls him the Ukrainian or vice versa, to his friend. So then what? Beis Din have the right to either put him in Cherem, says the Mechaber, and the Ramu, the Ashkenazi Ramu says even more, they can even lash him. If Beis Din decides, they have the right to decide that this guy went a little bit too far, that's too much the way he's insulting people, and at some point they'll say, Honeycomb, come with us, please. We'll give you some nice 39 lashes, Lavdafka 39, because that's a Darabonon. We'll give you lashes, and then he'll keep his mouth shut, and v'chule, instead of sending him to therapy and understanding where it's coming from and all the shtiyot, they will just say, you're insulting everybody, so whoop, 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 whoop. And that's about it. Having said that, listen to this. I'm sorry, I'm just so excited. Before I'll hear your questions and I'll treat you respectfully. Listen to this. Listen to the level of Ben Adam El Chavero. What I'm going to tell you now is not from Rabbi Sol Salante or Rav Wolbe. This is Shulchan Aruch from the Ramah. Listen to this. Let's say you tell your friend, I am not a liar. I am not a mamzer. What am I indicating? That the other person is. People do it all the time. Says the Ramah, that's an Isser, al Bonasponim. I'm scared to say this. That's really, really scary. And that's not Musa Sefer. That's written in the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, Ad Kedei Kachat. You have to be so careful with not hurting your friend's feelings. At Shulchan Aruch, I'm not giving you Musa now. I'm giving myself Musa, yeah, if anything. But this is halacha. However, payment you don't pay, but you pay much dearer payment in the world to come. Okay. I'm not going to insult anybody. I think he was first actually this time. Yeah. Yes. Cleaning? No, yeah, of course, that's all different story. That's nothing to do with the choivel. Yes, that belongs to where? To the beginning of the Masechta. That's nezek of the clothes, nothing to do with shame. Of course, you have to pay for the dry cleaning. Of course, yes, but that's not our sugya. That's a different area in halacha. Of course, yes. The answer is yes. Yes. Done? No. Is it insulting to call you peanut gallery? Now I have to be more careful. Yeah. Let's continue. Hakol lefik voidoi. Now we said something interesting in the Mishnah. I recommend, if it's not too difficult for you, if you don't have art scroll, I would actually read now the Mishnah in Daf Tzadi Amud Beis at the very, very, very top of Tzadi Amud Beis. It's very easy to locate it, so please do that. Say Tanakama, Zeh klal hakol lefik voidoi. Tanakama gave us, if you remember, a price list of, remember, if it's just a punch over here, it's 100. If it's just a slap on the face, it's 200. But for harder injuries, like to tear off his hair, to spit at him, to uncover her hair, to uncover his talis, to take away the shtreimel, whatever, that is 400 zuz. So we have a price list. And then Tanakama came with an interesting line. Zaklal, akolafik voidoi. Tanakama all of a sudden tell us, Tanakama tells us, it's dynamic. It all depends by the person's status, by the person's covered. In other words, that 400 can move where? That's going to be a question. I'm continuing the Mishnah, rabbis. Amar Rabbi Akiva, says Rabbi Akiva, no status in Am Yisrael. Rabbi Akiva is what? All Yisrael, Achim. Everyone is the same. All Jewish people are the same. Love and care. Amar Rabbi Akiva, afil anim shebi Yisrael. Even the poorest of Bnei Yisrael, roin oisem kilo b'deichon, shodem nichsem, shebnei Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Says Rabbi Akiva, even the poorest Jew is royal. royal free. You know, royal free? Yeah, he's a royal person because he's a poor guy and he's not exactly respectable because he's sitting in Rehov Yafo and he's homeless. So what? He's a royal person. So even anim should be treated as if that they are rich. So everyone's the same. Continues the Mishnah. There was a person who uncovered a woman's hair in the middle of the shuk. That lady, we don't know if she was rich, poor, or what, but Rabbi Kiva said that lady, which could have been poor, she deserved how much? 400 zuz. At this point, there's much more in the Mishnah. Now that we've seen, again, we recapped on the Mishnah, now let's see the Gemara. And the $1 million question is, the million zuz question is, Iboilu, that a question. Tanakama lekula ka'amar or lechumra ka'amar? When Tanakama gave us the, let's just talk about 400 because that covers a lot of cases. 400 zuz if you spit at someone, if you uncover a hair. And that Tanakama says, yeah, that's 400, but it's really dynamic, it's really changeable, it's really going great. Yeah, is it lekula or lechumra? To speak in nice modern English, is this the minimum amount or the maximum amount? Is this 400 the maximum and you can go lower? Or is this 400 the lowest rung in the ladder and can go higher if the person is more rich and famous? And the Gemara is going to tell us. Lekula ka'amar, the Gemara is going to elaborate. Lekula ka'amar, do Tanakama mean to say kula, lenient to the mazik, the ika oni, the labayil mishkal kuli high. Tanakama says, listen, 400 zuz, that's a heck of a lot of money. So you have a poor person, with all due respect, that homeless guy, nobody should put him to shame, of course. He's not such a makpid and he's covered, he makes fun of himself all the time. Come on. So he deserves 400? No. There's a sliding scale of 400, 300, 200, 100. In other words, 400 is the maximum. The poorer people, the less rich and famous, not so jet-setty, they get less. Oy dilma, or maybe, or pala, lechumra ka'amar. Maybe no. Maybe it means to be machmir Tanakama. Ika oshir. Some people are so rich and famous and choshuv and hoti toti. The boy lameit of leitzfei. The 400, that's minimum, says Tanakama. But we are being dynamic and changing. There's a sliding scale upwards. 400 is just the poor homeless guy in the street. Yeah, over there in Yafo, he gets 400. But the choshuv, the guy who runs the show from VH, he gets 1,000. That's the question. We don't know. And the comment is being ambiguous. He says 400 is some kind of standard. That's one, pin in the scale, but it's really a sliding scale. But the comment did not tell us if that's the minimum amount or the maximum amount. That's the question. Doshma, you tell me, you hear a person talking on the phone. How do you know who's the other person on the other side? You don't hear his voice. By the answers of the person you are listening to. Hear conversation, yeah. Sometimes you only hear one side of the conversation, you know what's being said on the other side. That's exactly what we're saying over here. Toshma, listen to Rabbi Akiva. Midekam Rabbi Akiva, afilu anim shabisrael roin oisan kilen bnei chorin shodem nichsem shem bnei Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Who's Rabbi Akiva fighting for? The poor. Rabbi Akiva is now saying, what? You're degrading the poor? Mapitom. No, everyone's bnei Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Egalitarian, all the same. And what? And therefore, says Rabbi Akiva, don't tell me that 400 is the maximum and it can go lower than that. No, everyone is the same. And even the poor people should be treated like whoever you see as the rich people, and everyone should get 400. Shma mino, from here we can derive, Tanakama lekula ka'amar shma mino. From here we assume, one second, there's much more to say. We assume from Rabbi Akiva's answer, we know what Tanakama meant. If Rabbi Akiva is telling me I have to fight for the rights of the poor people and equalize them and say they are the same as the rich ones, that is to say, Tanakama wanted to say that poor people get less. Tanakama wanted to say 400 is what? Is the maximum. You're very rich and famous and Choshev Rosh Hashiva billionaire, and also, I don't know what you are, president, 400. Less than that, you get less. Here, that Rabbi Akiva jumped out of his skin and said, no, wait. People less than 400 are not less, equalize them to the 400. That is not so simple still. Rashi here points out, it's not necessarily true. One could still argue and say, how do you know? Maybe Tanakama tells us that 400 is the minimum, okay? And rich people get more. The richer and more famous, more choshev, more talmid chacham, whatever you are, you get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have the gold plan, the diamond, the platinum, the whatever. 400 is the minimum. And maybe Rabbi Kiva said, no, the anim should not get 400, the anim should get more. Maybe Rabbi Kiva wanted the minimum rung to be higher, to be more than 400. That cannot be. Why? Because of the story of the woman with the uncovered hair. Ooh, what was her story? What did Rabbi Kiva tell the guy who uncovered her hair in the street to pay her how much? 400. If you want to tell me, Rabbi Kiva says that the minimum wage, the minimum, compensation should be more than 400. How come he said that the woman should get 400? That cannot be. We see Rabbi Kiva agrees on the 400 as a standard. We don't say Rabbi Kiva wants to be so good with the poor people more than 400, because he also used the 400 as at least one. This woman with the uncovered hair is not a subhuman. Yeah, she also deserves. Therefore, must be the other way. Must be Tanna Kama wanted to say 400 is the maximum, and you have 3, 2, 1, 0. Yeah, not 0. You have less. Yeah. Comes Rabbi Kiva and says, oh, I equal as everybody to be 400, including this nondescript woman. Who, by the way, is not such a big tzaddikus because she uncovered her hair to get the oil in her hair. Remember? So Mimela, we say that Rabbi Kiva means to say that 400 is everyone's share. That's equal and justice for all, like in America, right? Everyone's equal, justice for all. Everyone's the same in the eyes of the law in America. That's exactly how it's done for sure. And that's 400 in our standards. And Rabbi Kiva says, that's what he says. Well, Tanna Kama says no. Tanna Kama says 400 is for the rich and 3, 2, 1 dinar is for the less mechubed. Not because we don't treat them nicely. By the way, people, now joking aside, and I'll listen to your questions soon as long, yeah. Not that we are Khalila, we don't justify that system, but the reality is like that. Chazal are being pragmatic, being practical. Lamaisa, the guy was not so makbid in his covered. He's a homeless guy. Loch patlo. He's dressed with rags. Everyone's already holding him to be a garnish. I'm not saying it's a good situation, but lemaisa, he's insulted less. We assess that he's less insulted, and we say, Seder, he doesn't get the 400 that the Rosh Chabura gets, that the Rosh Ashirim gets. Is it good or bad? It's reality. And malasot. And I also pointed out that I don't know, but I think that in a better society where money is not the main factor but Torah, I assume the same would play for Torah. Let's say the person who's Choshev Rosh Hashiva, big Talmid Chacham, according to Tanna Kama, he would get 400. The person is not a Talmid Chacham and not rich and not somebody so in the limelight, he would get 300. And you have different standards. I prefer no questions now because we're behind in Erev Purim. You're good? Everyone's happy? Equally, Ellen wants to tell us. I want to hear you.
Disagree with Rabbi Akiva.
Why? Who disagreed?
Because Rabbi Akiva says it's 400.
Yeah.
And
why did Tanna Kama disagree with him?
Yeah.
They don't believe in the concept. I'll tell you why. Good question. Ellen asks a good and simple question. Rabbi Akiva wants to tell us something very musardi, very philosophical and very idealistic. He says, really, we're all royal inside. Yeah, inside of us, we're all very royal and we're makpid and we should be makpid. That's a good material for good song. Yeah, we have good Jewish singers, songwriters. Everyone is royal. Everyone has a crown. It's true. Says Rabbi Akiva. So everyone halachically, cash, money, should be treated as if they're kings. Says Tanna Kama, listen, Rabbi Akiva, that's a very nice muster word. It's a very nice muster idea. It's very touching. But when it comes to money, it's not reality. Reality is, you go to certain places in the world, believe me, I'm a fundraiser, and I can tell a guy goes into shul in certain places in the world, I can tell in 5 seconds how much money the guy has. Because all the other younger working balabatim, they all come to him like ants to a sweet and all with smiles and chalufa. I know the guy has money. And the other guy who puts his tefillin in the corner without much to do is probably, in most cases, is not as mechubed. That's reality. And says Tanna Kama, Mr. Not Chashol, Mr. We have to go with the reality. That's what Tanna Kama says. Rabbi Akiva goes with the ideal reality. And Tanna Kama goes with the existing reality. That's where I see it. And that's about it. That's the best I can produce for now. Quickly, please have mercy on me. That's the last question for this round. Quickly. Yeah. Let's talk about the woman with the hair covered or uncovered. And by the way, we're not learning now the figures of tznius. We're learning mitzad busha. A woman who covers her hair, as obviously they all should. Once you uncover hair in the street, it's not just because of halacha like, not saying Lashon Hara, it's also a shame, right? You take off a woman's hair cover in the street, it's very embarrassing for her to be in that situation. So this is not sneeze now, okay? We're now talking about her own embarrassment, which obviously should be part of her natural sneeze, and she's misbiased. So what happened to that lady? She took him to Beis Din. The guy uncovered her hair. And what? That's not funny, mister. Pay me how much? 400 zuz. And then the guy had a very good lawyer. What did the guy do? He told the Rabbi Kiva, give me time, Rabbi. I know I owe her 400, but give me time. What did he do? He hired two Eidim, not checker. He got two Eidim, and he broke a jug of oil from Hanukkah next to her doorstep, but in Rishus Harabim, right outside her house. And she was so tempted by the oil, she uncovered her hair in order to collect the oil and smear the oil on her head. She had the dry hair, okay? She needed the oil thing. And Mimela, and then he said, oh, you see, that lady, she's suing me because I uncovered her hair. She herself uncovers her hair because she wants a little bit of oil worth Isar. What did Rabbi Kiva say? None of your business. I'm sorry I'm using such terms. Why? It's her choice. Not that it's okay what she did. I'm not justifying her. Just because the person puts himself to shame does not mean you can also put him to shame. His shame is his business, his embarrassment. He wants to look like a clown. It's one thing. Does not mean that the other person can make him look like a clown. That's a summary of the Mishnah. Good? Later. Now, Umaysa be'echod. Listen to this unbelievable. Shepara Rosh Ha'isha. Question is, what did the guy say at the beginning? The guy had a good lawyer. What did he say? Give me time. He wanted time to play the game. Do you actually allow a person who owes money to his friend and it was decided in base? By the way, a few lines I'm going to tell you now. I have a lot of meforshim that I've seen that are all involved here in the discussion. Question number one: do you give time to a person once it was decided? Meaning, what? As long as base did not, how do you say, to do the gavel, did not bang whatever the gavel was not decided. You have time. I have Adim, I have rice, I have stars, I have hidden cameras, I have my mother's psychologist to justify me, etc. Once decided, I'm quoting Tosfos. Once decided, why do you give him time? Pay her right now. It was decided, you owe 400 zuz. What's his business? Give me time. You're not supposed to give a person time once he choven. If a person hurts someone physically, damage someone physically, say the Meforshim, the Shulchan Aruch, not only on his face, Khalil, or his body, even a broken table, broken chair. You have to pay ASAP, do not delay, pay today. So why is Rabbi Kiva playing his game and allowing him to wait? And that only caused more trouble because this guy was playing lawyer. Answers the Gemara, no. Chabala, last time I checked, means injury, boom, he actually took something from him. He cut off his finger. He broke his nose. He did something physical that's mechaser, that takes away something he has. Aval boishes is terrible, but nothing physical was taken away from you. When hair was uncovered, it's terrible, not nice, he's not a good guy, and he has to pay. But he did not take away something from her physically. The loichas lemamoino, yavinan, we give him time. In other words, there's a certain point of leniency because, which makes a lot of sense in a very Balbatish way. Let's say, you know how it goes. A guy misses somebody, let's say you lend your friend a chair for Purim, okay, and he wasn't shikker and he broke the chair. You need the chair. The guy tells you, oh, I owe you a chair. I'm so sorry. Oh, I owe you a chair, of course. I'll bring you a nice one. When? Next year. You need a chair. You know, you're not a millionaire to start buying chairs all the time. You need a chair now. You took away something, give it back right now. But boishes, nothing physical was taken. Mimela, of course, he has to pay her, but then he can buy time. He doesn't have to pay right now. He can pay later. I don't know how much you can delay. I didn't see that in Shulchan Aruch. Now, look at this unbelievable story. Says the Sma, the Sefer Meir Sinai, one of the main Meforshim of Shulchan Aruch, the Nois Sekelim, he says like this. The Shulchan Aruch says that, let's say a person harmed his friend with 5 things. He punched his face, boom, right away, 5 tashlumim are there to be paid. The boishes can be delayed. Boishes is not physical. Says the Sma, no. If you punched his face, listen carefully, there was physical damage, and boishes, shame and embarrassment, was part of the physical story. that you have to pay right away. Only when boishes is, there's another kind of boishes, which is what? Spitting, uncovering the hair, no damage done physically. I call it pure boishes. An incident that involves boishes only, then we say we can push it away. Get me? But if you did a damage which is physical, just like the other four you have to pay right now, the boishes you have to pay right now. In our Mishnah, the case was only boishes. There was nothing else that happened to her. Yeah, her tichel was up. That's not painful. The tichel is off in half a second. She didn't lose her job. Nothing happened except for shame. And he has to pay for that shame. Elamai, you can wait with that. And he used the time to wait and to try to prove himself right by showing that she doesn't care about her own dignity and tznius. We're now in North Korea. Welcome to North Korea. I hope you enjoy your stay. The next 7 minutes. North Korea next to China, which is next to Russia. And it's all very nice. Okay, thank you. In 7 minutes, you'll be able to express your opinions and questions again. Weiter. Shomer medes Pesach Hatzero. Frag the Gemara about Tanya. Frag the Gemara. Oh, what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said, and now we're entering a whole new sugya. Is a person allowed to damage himself? Can I go and self-mutilate? Can I go and scratch myself? Can I go and make myself bleed or cut my own finger because I think it's cool? So the Mishnah said, no. Yitzchak remembers the Mishnah very nicely. And what do we say? No, you don't. You are not allowed to harm yourself, right? Elamai, not allowed to harm yourself. She did. So what? That's her cheshbon. You are definitely not allowed to harm anybody or cause shame to anybody. Frag the Gemara about Tanya, and this is all Rabbi Akiva. Frag the Gemara from a Brisa, also from Rabbi Akiva, which contradicts something that we said. Listen carefully to the words. Amal Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva replied to the smarty pants guy, to the lawyer guy, like this. Salal to b'mayim adirim, like we say in the vidui. You dived. You say dived? Yeah. You dove. I wasn't sure. Yeah, you dove. I don't know how to say it in Korean. I think you say dive. American English. Weiter. Bekitzer, Salalta. Yeah. Salalta b'mayim adirim. You dove. Bekitzer, you were diving. Dovi. You went into deep water. You swam into the deep water. Yeah. Okay. And all you got out of the water was a piece of clay, pottery. What does that mean? You made a whole lawyer shtick. You broke the thing, and you made a whole scene, and you got edim. You think you're a smart guy, but you didn't gain anything, which means I'm not accepting your claim that this woman doesn't care about her dignity. Therefore, you too can put her to shame. No, I don't. You made a very nice shtick over here, but that doesn't work. Listen now to what he says. Adam rashay lechabel be'atzmo. Wow. Adam is allowed to lechabel be'atzmo. A person is allowed to actually harm himself. The Mishnah said a person is not allowed to harm himself. Calm down. There's no contradiction between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Akiva. When it comes to physical injury, I'm not allowed to take a knife, and maybe the youngsters do it today, and sholem cut myself, I don't know, Mogen David here. No, not allowed to harm myself physically. Boishes, I'm allowed. If a person wants to make himself look like a clown and act like a clown, the person wants and spit at himself somehow. That's his choice. That's not osur. Very good. That's the answer. That's boishes and that's injury. And in 4 minutes, you can ask your questions too. Reg the Gemara, doesn't make sense. Not true what you're saying. Excuse me. The Mishnah is talking about boishes, about embarrassment, and yet it says about that Viktani. We see that even though choivel there does not mean physical, that woman, nobody hit her, she didn't hit herself. It's all about what? Shame, embarrassment, psychological. And yet we say, Eino rashai. She's not allowed to do that. So your answer is not true. Yeah, even shame, you cannot put yourself to shame. And don't tell me because it's kisui rosh of tznius, because we're not talking about tznius. We're also talking about a man who is a chosid. He removes his shtrimal and bekisha, and he goes to the tish without shtrimal and bekisha. That's very shameful for them to do. If he does it himself, what do we say? We see here that he's not allowed to do that. Eino rashai. Answers the Gemara, "Hachi kama le." No, you have to read the Mishnah as follows. Lomi by boishes, not only boishes, the odom rashel vaishes atzmoi. The Mishnah should be read as follows. By boishes, a person is allowed to put himself to shame. A person wants to act like Purim in the middle of Kislev and do funny things and call himself, I'm a mamzer, I'm a rosh, I'm stupid, whatever. I mean, not to say Lashon Hara. Bevakasha. So for sure, says what? And still, the other person is not allowed to put him to shame. The person all the time calls himself, I'm monkey, 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 does not mean that the other person can call him monkey. I'm allowed to call myself a monkey, and that's okay. The other person is not allowed to call me a monkey. Ela filu chabolo. The bigger chiddush is, says the Mishnah, even physical injury, to take a knife and cut my cheek, I don't know, then adam rosh lechabel ba'atzmoi. A person is not allowed to harm himself, injure himself, and yet he did, and that's worse, because he's not only moichel, listen carefully, he's double trouble. He's moichel his body, he's moichel cutting, and also he's doing an iser, so he's a mekulkal. He's doing an avera, so I'm not allowed to cut him? Of course I'm allowed to. And we still say, no. Other people, if they cut him, they're chayav. As I said, do not go to the Chiloni's cupboard and go to the brand new pair of trousers. You know what trousers are? Good. Yeah, can't cut them. Maybe I'll go and I'll cut all these trousers. No, I can't cut his pants. Why? He chooses to cut his pants as much as he likes. Doesn't mean I'm allowed to do that. He did it to the other three pants. That's his choice. I'm not allowed to harm him. And boishes is the same. But right now we are okay. Again, let's summarize. Right now it's very simple. To put himself to shame, a person is allowed to. I can call myself monkey, stupid, and make funny faces and look like an idiot. It's stupid, it's childish, but it's allowed. If other people put me to shame, they're not allowed. And that's the story of the Mishnah with the woman with the hair cover. What about physical injury? More or less the same, plus another additional factor. I'm not allowed to harm myself physically. I'm not allowed to scratch myself. I'm not allowed to cause myself harm. And if other people did it to me, of course they're chayev. That's what we're saying. Frag the Gemara, and we'll have to finish soon, and we're way behind. Frag the Gemara. Okay, so far so good. I'll hear your questions in a minute. Frag the Gemara. Ben odem rashel lechabel be'atzmai. Are you sure? Did you come to the final conclusion, solution? A person is not allowed to injure himself. Tanya. And we'll give an introduction. Tomorrow is Tanis, but I'd like to have a shiur tomorrow. Yeah, 9:25 tomorrow. And now let me just give an introduction. Everybody knows the chumrah of shvua. If a person was nishba, we learned in last week's parsha, Vayikra, lehora or lehetiv. A person made a shvua. I prefer not using the English words because those sounds a bit off. And not an oath. And a shvua, I'm nishba. I swear that I'm going to eat pizza tomorrow. I swear that I will not eat pizza tomorrow. That's called lehora or lehetiv. That's the lashon of the Torah. A person was nishba to do something bad for himself or do something good for himself. What do we say? And he broke it. He did not have pizza or whatever he swore. He acted the opposite. He's chayiv. He has to bring a korban. He has to bring a korban chatas. We just saw it in the parsha. Nachon? A korban. Now, what's the ora or lehetiv? Let me ask you a question, and that's going to be tomorrow's shiur. Can a person say, I'm nishba, that tomorrow I'm going to cut myself? Khalila, he wants to cut himself, the flag of Ukraine. He's so identifying with Ukraine, like the entire Western world, right? They all help Ukraine very much. So he wants to actually mutilate himself to, show solidarity and cut himself in the body, engrave that, and he was nishba to do it. But he didn't do it. His father told him he shouldn't do that, and he didn't do it. Is that a problem? Why? He wants to do an iser. L'chayra, if bodily harm is osur, just like I swear to eat chazir, I'm not supposed to eat chazir. If I swear to cut myself, I shouldn't cut myself. Surprisingly, seemingly, we're going to see tomorrow that it's the other way around. That's going to be the surprise. It seems like the Gemara says that if I swore to cut myself, Khalila, then I should cut myself. How come? You can't be nishba to over an iser. And that's going to be the question, which we'll see tomorrow. Mitzvah Hashem. Bam, 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 bam. Baruch wants to ask a question, and we are now back to the free world of the free. Welcome back, Rav Simkin.